Thank you. Thank you very much, Prime Minister, dear Eduard. I'm here really to thank you and to thank the Slovak people for their outstanding effort to support and welcome the people that are fleeing the war in Ukraine. And I think in this very dark hour, it is wonderful to see the unity and to see the solidarity that really sheds a positive light on a very, very difficult situation. We know that hundreds of thousands of people are fleeing Putin's bombs in Ukraine. They are leaving their homes, they are leaving their lives behind. At least more than 1 million people so far have crossed our borders, and Slovakia alone has taken in 80,000 up to now, welcomed 80,000, provided them with food and shelter and human warmth. I really want to commend the Slovakian people and you, Prime Minister, for that. We've seen very touching examples. For example, in Snina, Stefan drove around town to collect supplies, pillows, blankets, food, and set up a dormitory in the local gym. Or the story from Svitnik, where Yaroslav and Svitlana are now sharing their roof with 4 Ukrainian women and their children, while their husbands stayed behind to fight for their country. Or the story of the bus driver who was sent to the border to pick up 8 students, and he was so moved by that he returned and picked up another 50 ones just to help. And these are just individual examples, but they show what the Slovak people are doing today. Slovakia has really stepped up to welcome refugees, and we are very, very grateful for that. We should not forget that it was a convoy from Slovakia that was the very first to reach Kyiv when the invasion started. And this too, I really thank you, because this is an example of European solidarity at its best. Now, the European Union as a whole is also, of course, supporting all those people who are fleeing this war. First of all, we will make sure that we offer them effective and fast protection. And this is why the European Commission proposed a so-called temporary protection mechanism. That means that the refugees from Ukraine immediately get residency rights here in the European Union for guaranteed a year, can be automatically prolonged for 2 years. That means access to the labor market, access to schools for the children, access immediately also to medical care. You were the example with doing the national legislation, and we now cover that for the whole of the European Union for at least 2 years, so that these people, Ukrainians coming to the European Union, are immediately welcomed here, have residency rights, and can proceed. In parallel, we have issued guidelines for border management. Here, it's so important to simplify procedures. So the temporary protection mechanism also makes it very, very simple, because we know more refugees will come, and we have to be fast to give them immediately a possibility, a perspective to be here, but also that they can move on to other parts of the European Union. The second topic I want to mention is humanitarian support. Humanitarian support to deal with the consequences of this war inside the countries and, of course, for refugees. I've announced yesterday in the European Parliament that we will deploy at least 500 million euros from the EU budget for humanitarian assistance for refugees. We know this is just the beginning, but we want to signal to you, we know that it's an enormous effort that all the countries now that are at the border of Ukraine are doing to welcome the refugees. We stand by your side, and of course this also means that we share the burden, and Europe is there for you to compensate. This is a topic that is for me important now also, to get assistance into Ukraine, to the people who need it desperately. And for that, we must open humanitarian corridors. Humanitarian convoys need a safe passage, and civilians must be allowed to leave the besieged cities in a safe way. And therefore, Russia must allow our humanitarian partners to deliver this assistance to the people that are in the war zone. In the unwavering support for Ukraine, we are also responding with very strong measures. One point that is important for me here in Slovakia is also that, first of all, I want to commend you and thank you for offering the humanitarian hub, or we sometimes also call it a civil protection hub, that is additional now. This is very important because that allows us to get in the assistance from other member states here, for example, to the humanitarian hub you're building up, and distributing it to the region. So many thanks for your willingness to host this hub. Many thanks for your pragmatism that you have. We bring in the expertise, the professionals who know how to deal with these crises instantly, and that will also be able to organize, for example, other supporters from the United Nations or from NGOs to really have the Red Cross, for example, to really have the help speedily coming to the people who desperately need it. Then there's another topic, and these are the sanctions against the Russian leadership for the war by choice they have brought to Ukraine. Our aim is to stop this invasion and to cut off the Kremlin's possibility and capacity to finance this war against its neighbors. That's why we have introduced these massive sanctions at an unprecedented speed, within hours. And these sanctions are also applied by our allies and partners. So far, more than 40 countries worldwide have aligned completely with our sanctions. And you were mentioning the landslide victory yesterday in the United Nations General Assembly, with 141 countries condemning Russia's war brought to the Ukraine neighbors. The 3 waves of sanctions that we have already introduced have a massive impact on the Russian economy and therefore on Putin's war efforts. And we will introduce additional measures if the situation deteriorates on the ground. And finally, indeed, you mentioned it, we also have to be prepared for retaliation measures by Russia and the Kremlin. And one big topic is LNG and energy. And indeed, as of today, we can say that we're able, as a European Union, even if we would be completely decoupled from Russian gas, to make it through this heating season. Our friends all over the world that supply LNG are willing to step up the supplies of LNG. So with the storage that we have and with the additional LNG supplies from partners all over the world, we're able to make it through this winter, and we're preparing now to get rid of this dependency of Russian gas and to go into new sources, to diversify our sources of energy supply. On top of the list is, of course, the renewables, because the renewables are clean, they are homegrown, so it's a strategic investment that we do in investing in the renewables. It's also a strategic investment in our independence from the Russian fossil fuels. As the bombs continue to fall, we pay tribute to the determination and the bravery of the people of Ukraine and the outstanding leadership of President Zelensky. They are an inspiration to all of us, and we will never forget how they stand up in these difficult days for our values, for the principles of independence and freedom. But likewise, we will never forget the solidarity of the Slovak people. So thank you very much.
Ďakujeme veľmi pekne. Priestor teraz máme pre krátkosť času na 2 novinárske otázky. Nech sa páči, televízia Markíza.
Dobrý deň, Martin Pročka, televízia Markíza. Dve otázky na pána premiéra Hegera aj na pani predsedničku. Pán premiér, chcel som sa opýtať, že či už vieme, že koľko dostaneme z toho balíka peňazí 500 miliónov a na čo konkrétne tie peniaze budú použité. A pani predsedničky by som sa chcel opýtať, či Únia pomôže krajinám najmä v strednej a východnej Európe, ktoré sú závislé na ruskej energetike, a či v tomto kontexte aj neprehodnotíme ciele Green Dealu.
Ak dovolíte, využijem vašu otázku na to, aby som poukázal možno aj na to, o čom sme hovorili s pani predsedničkou. A tá jednota a súdržnosť európskych štátov výrazne zrejme prekvapila aj Vladimíra Putina. Keď sa pýtate, koľko, takáto otázka vôbec nie je na stole, pretože tá solidarita je úplná. Dnes to není o tom, že o nejakých percentách. Každá krajina chce pomôcť najviac, ako sa dá. Čiže predpokladám, že je to presne o tej štedrosti a srdečnosti, ktorá väčšinou vždy je odmeňovaná viac, ako dáte. A v tomto momente ten balík peňazí je tu nachystaný, a keď bude potrebné, bude aj väčší, práve na to, aby sme pokryli všetky potreby. Takže aj dnes pani predsednička veľmi silný signál vyslala, že sme v tom spolu, počítajte s nami, peniaze budú k dispozícii z úrovne európskej úrovne, takže hovoríme aj o 100% preplatení. Samozrejme, som si istý, že dnes to nie je otázka peňazí, dnes je to otázka ľudskosti a pomoci.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. This is a very noble answer. Rest assured that the European solidarity, of course, is there to support a country like Slovakia in what you're doing now. You have enormous expenses. The staff that is working, you need to give food, water, shelter to the refugees, and of course we stand up together as Europeans from the European budget to support Slovakia in that. The biggest gift you are giving is the human warmth and the reception of the refugees. This is priceless, if I may say so. On your second question, if I got it right, whether Slovakia will benefit from the gas solidarity, of course. I mean, we have in the last years invested heavily in LNG terminals. That's good, because that helps us now. We have from all over the world, starting with the United States, but other suppliers, Egypt, for example, also, who want to step up their LNG supplies to the European Union. We have more than 25 LNG terminals to get the resources. And thanks to a massive investment over the last years in pipelines and interconnectors, we have a pipeline network all over the European Union that enables us to basically send the gas to where it is needed. And therefore, of course, Slovakia will be supported if need be. On top, we still have the storage. Slovakia also has quite substantial storage. And this combination makes it for us possible to, in case of decoupling of Russian gas, to make it now throughout the winter with the own supplies that we are able to get.
Ďakujeme. Ešte máte otázku? Tak nech sa páči, Bloomberg, k mikrofónu, ďakujem.
Dano Horniak, agentúra Bloomberg. Chcem sa spýtať pani predsedničky Európskej komisie, ako sa Európska komisia postaví k žiadosti Ukrajiny o členstvo v Únii, či už ste tú žiadosť dostali od Európskej rady, kedy môžeme čakať vlastne vyjadrenie od komisie. A v tejto súvislosti je tu aj aktuálna otázka Moldavska aj Gruzínska, ktoré takisto prejavili záujem.
I think it is very important, first of all, to say that these brave people in Ukraine that are willing to fight for our common universal values and to die for our universal values belong in our European family, without any doubt. Now, indeed, President Zelensky has sent a letter on Ukraine's application. And indeed, there is Moldova and Georgian wish also to send a letter concerning an application. And by that, President Zelensky has set a process in motion. And this process is now evolving. It will be the next step that the leaders, the member states will discuss that, but there is a process ongoing, and this is a positive development. We have, before the war, already had special, outstanding relationship with Ukraine. I always emphasize that we have started to integrate the different markets, strong economic ties. We have been working intensively on energy security for Ukraine. That pays off now in these days. We have the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement with Ukraine, so a lot of steps have already been done in the days before the war. Now with this application, a process is put in motion, and it will be discussed in the appropriate different settings.
Ak môžem ešte na to nadviazať, ja som rád, že Slovensko bolo medzi prvými krajinami, ktorí vyjadrili podporu členstvu Ukrajiny v Európskej únii. Je to pochopiteľné. Sme ich dlhoročný priateľ, sme ich sused, rozumieme im a naše vzťahy za posledné 2 roky sa veľmi zintenzívnili. Chcem však povedať jeden príbeh, ktorý sa udial počas rady minulý štvrtok a zaznel z úst slovinského premiéra, ktorý spomenul časy 90. rokov, kedy oni čelili vojne. A povedal, že signál, ktorý vyslala vtedy Európa Slovinsku, bol pre nich takou vzpruhou a nádejou, že veľmi dobre rozumie tej požiadavke, žiadosti, túžbe ukrajinského ľudu, stelesneného v ukrajinskom prezidentovi, ktorý to formuluje do konkrétnych slov. Myslím si, že je veľmi dôležité tento signál politicky vyslať. A som veľmi rád, že pani predsednička to veľmi jasne povedala, keď to pomenovala, že sú našou rodinou. Toto zaznievalo za európskym stolom z úst viacerých lídrov a myslím, že to jasne ukazuje, ako sa na našich ukrajinských priateľov pozeráme. A myslím si, že poslednú vec, ktorú tomu poviem a ktorú som povedal viackrát, treba si uvedomiť, že minulý štvrtok sme sa zobudili do nového sveta. Preto musíme hľadať nové spôsoby, nové pravidlá, aby sme umožnili krajine, ktorá je dnes vo veľmi jedinečnej situácii a neporovnateľnej s akoukoľvek inou krajinou, ktoré dnes čakajú na vstup do Európskej únie. Táto krajina je skúšaná vojnou, je devastovaná vojnou a bude žiaľ zdevastovaná vojnou. Veríme, že udržia svoju nezávislosť, že udržia svoju vládu, udržia demokraciu v krajine, ale žiaľ bude ekonomicky zdevastovaná. Preto potrebujeme poskytnúť pomoc ale v čo najväčšom rozmere, aby sme im pomohli sa postaviť na vlastné nohy. Verím, že tento nový spôsob, túto novú otvorenú myseľ, nové postoje nájdeme práve v našich spoločných rokovaniach a nájdeme spôsob, ako ich v tejto rodine mať a ako im vytvoriť ten priestor, ako to bude len možné. Ďakujem pekne.
I have one point just more to share, and this is Moldova and Georgia. I just want to be very clear that they have our unwavering support too. And Moldova, you were mentioning Moldova, is hosting also many, many refugees. Therefore, help and support from the European Union is guaranteed in kind, but also financially. It's outstanding what Moldova is doing at the moment, being taking in refugees from their neighbor Ukraine, and of course we support them in dealing with that situation, but also to make it possible for the refugees to move on to the European Union.
Ďakujeme vám všetkým veľmi pekne za účasť na tejto tlačovej konferencii aj za všetky vyhlásenia. Želáme vám ešte pekný deň, dovidenia.
Ďakujem pekne.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.